The text arrives at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. I'm in bed, laptop balanced on my knees, finalizing the seating chart for my sister's wedding, 3 hours deep into navigating divorced relatives and feuding cousins, when my phone lights up. Megan's name glows across the screen. I expect a question about centerpieces. Instead, it's one line, 14 words. Don't bother showing up to the wedding. It's not your day. I read it 3 times, waiting for the follow-up that clarifies, that softens the blow. Nothing comes. My hands start shaking before my brain processes what's happened. 6 months of work, 200 hours of phone calls, vendor negotiations, spreadsheet adjustments, every weekend sacrificed, every evening spent perfecting details for a day that was supposed to celebrate family. And I've just been uninvited, via text, like a vendor she decided to cut. I close my laptop, slowly, carefully. Then I do something I haven't done in years when it comes to my family. I laugh. Not happy, something darker. The kind of laugh that comes when you finally understand you've been the punchline your entire life. My name is Ava Collins. I'm 31 years old, and I just realized I've spent 3 decades being the family fixer, while my sister Megan got to be the family star. But here's what Megan doesn't know. Every vendor contract for her perfect wedding, the venue, the caterer, the florist, the photographer, the band, every single one is registered under my business name, Collins Events LLC. Not hers, mine. The final payment deadline? 7 days before the wedding, which means legally, professionally, contractually, her entire wedding belongs to me, and I'm about to take it back. I grew up in a house where love was conditional and conditions constantly shifted. To the neighbors, we looked perfect. Matching Christmas cards, manicured lawn, the family that waved from driveways and volunteered at church fundraisers. Inside those walls, there was a hierarchy so rigid it might as well have been written into the foundation. Megan was the sun. Everyone else orbited. She got the attention, the praise, the endless second chances. I got the responsibilities, the cleanup duty, the role of invisible scaffolding holding up her shine. It started small. When we were kids, Megan would throw tantrums and I'd be sent to calm her down. She'd break something and I'd take the blame because Ava's older, she should know better. She'd fail a test and I'd spend my weekend tutoring her while my parents took her shopping to cheer her up. By high school, the pattern was set in stone. Megan threw parties that trashed the house. I scrubbed red Solo cup rings off furniture at 6 a.m. while she slept off her hangover. She'd borrow my clothes without asking and return them stained or torn. When I complained, my mother would sigh like I was being difficult. Don't make everything a competition, Ava. She's your sister. But it was never a competition. You can't compete when the game is rigged from birth. I learned early that my value in this family came from what I could fix, not from who I was. So, when Megan got engaged 8 months ago to Alex, a perfectly nice accountant with a trust fund and no ability to say no to her, I wasn't surprised when she announced my role at Sunday dinner. Ava's going to plan the wedding. She does this for a living, so obviously it's her gift to us. Not a request, a decree. My parents beamed. Alex looked uncomfortable but said nothing, and I, like always, swallowed my hesitation and said yes. I run an event planning company, started it from nothing 5 years ago, working 70-hour weeks, taking jobs no one wanted, building a reputation one centerpiece at a time. Now I coordinate weddings for clients who fly me across the country, who pay premium rates, who thank me in handwritten notes. For my sister, I offered it all for free. Because maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time she'd see how hard I worked. Maybe this time my parents would look at me with the same pride they reserved for Megan's engagement photos. Maybe I could finally earn my place as something more than the help. God, I was stupid. The first warning came 2 months in. We were in my apartment reviewing floral options when Megan's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, and then looked at me with casual entitlement. "So the florist needs the deposit. Can you cover it for now? I'll pay you back next month." I hesitated. $1,800. Not catastrophic, but not nothing. "I thought you and Alex were handling vendor payments." She waved a hand dismissively. "We are, but the wedding fund is tight. Alex's car needed repairs. You know how it is." I didn't know how it was. I'd been driving the same Honda Civic for 9 years, specifically to build my business savings. But I opened my banking app and transferred the money anyway. "Thanks, babe," Megan said, already scrolling through bridesmaids' dresses. "You're the best." She never paid me back. A month later, it was the photographer. "Just cover the retainer, we'll reimburse you." Then the cake. "The bakery needs a deposit by Friday." Then the linens, the lighting, the day of coordinator. Each time, the same promise: "We'll pay you back." Each time, nothing. By month 5, I'd put down over $11,000. My carefully built business account was hemorrhaging money into a wedding I was apparently funding alone. When I tried to bring it up, my mother cut me off. "Megan's under so much stress, honey. Don't add to it. You're doing so well with your business. This is just family helping family." Just family helping family. As if family flowed in only one direction. The breaking point came 3 weeks before the wedding. My father called on a Sunday afternoon. His voice was warm, cheerful, the tone he used when he wanted something. "Ava, sweetheart, we're all pitching in for Megan and Alex's wedding gift, a down payment on their first house. Your share is $5,000. You can just Venmo me." I was standing in my kitchen, coffee halfway to my mouth. "Dad, I've already spent $11,000 on the wedding itself." "That's different. That's your professional contribution. This is a family gift." "I'm not even invited anymore." The silence lasted 3 seconds, then his voice hardened. "That's a separate issue, Ava. Don't punish your sister over a seating disagreement." A seating disagreement? As if my erasure was equivalent to a debate over assigned tables. "I'm not sending $5,000 to someone who uninvited me via text." "You're really going to be this petty? I expected better from you." He hung up. I stood in my kitchen long after he hung up, coffee going cold, staring at nothing. Expected better. They always expected better from me. More patience, more flexibility, more silence. They expected Megan to be selfish, but me, I was supposed to be the mature one, the understanding one, the one who absorbed every wound without complaint. That night, lying awake at 2 a.m., I opened my laptop and pulled up every vendor contract. All of them listed Collins Events LLC as the primary client. My business, my name. Standard practice: personal and professional finances stay separate, the first rule they taught you in business school. I'd never thought of it as leverage, just protocol. But as I scrolled through clause after clause, one detail stood out. Final payment due 7 days prior to event. Failure to remit payment will result in cancellation of services and forfeiture of deposit to client of record. Except the deposits hadn't gone to the vendors, they'd been refunded to me. This wedding didn't belong to Megan, it belonged to me, and I could take it back. I didn't act immediately. For 3 days, I went through the motions, worked regular client meetings, returned vendor calls about Megan's wedding like everything was fine, but a plan was forming, quiet, cold, precise. I called Nina Chen, a college friend who'd gone into contract law. We met at a cafe that evening. I slid the folder across the table. Nina scanned the contracts with laser focus. After 10 minutes, she looked up. "You're the client of record on every single one of these." "I know." "Which means legally, professionally, contractually, her entire wedding belongs to you." "Can I cancel them?" "Absolutely. The payment deadline clause is standard. If final payment isn't received 7 days prior to event, the contract becomes void. Deposits would be refunded to you." My heart pounded. "Is it petty if I use that?" Nina's expression didn't change. "Petty would be slashing her tires. This is business. You signed contracts in good faith. You provided services and capital. If they failed to meet obligations, you're within your rights to terminate." "She's my sister." "She's also someone who uninvited you from a wedding you've been funding and planning for 6 months. Nina closed the folder. "Ava, I've known you since we were 18. You're the most conflict-avoiding person I've ever met. If you're actually considering this, it means they pushed you past a line you didn't even know you had." "What would you do?" "I'd burn it down." She said it without hesitation. "But I'm vindictive. You're not. So the real question is, can you live with yourself if you don't?" I thought about that question for 2 more days. Then I drove to Megan's apartment. She answered the door in yoga pants, wine glass in hand, Netflix paused behind her. "Ava, what are you doing here?" "I need to understand why you uninvited me." She sighed like I was a mosquito she couldn't quite swat. "There wasn't room. It's not personal." "You had room for 173 people, but not me." "Look, it's my wedding. I get to choose who's there. And honestly," she took a sip of wine, "you've been so controlling about the whole thing. This was supposed to be my day, and you made it about your business, about your spreadsheets and timelines and vendor contracts. You sucked all the joy out of it." My chest tightened. "I was trying to make it perfect for you." "I didn't ask for perfect. I asked for help. And you turned it into this," she waved her hand dismissively, "this production. Everything had to be documented and scheduled and approved. It stopped being about love and became about your need for control." "I was paying for it, Megan, out of my own savings. $11,000. Every deposit, every retainer." "That was your choice. I never forced you." And there it was. The moment I finally understood. She'd never see it, never acknowledge what she'd taken from me. In her mind, my labor was voluntary, my money was freely given, my erasure was justified. I nodded slowly. "You're right, it was my choice, and now I'm making a different one." Her eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "You'll find out tomorrow." I left before she could respond. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and drafted 4 emails. 1 to the venue, 1 to the caterer, 1 to the florist, 1 to the rental company. Each one polite, professional, stripped of emotion. "Dear vendor name, as the primary client on record for the event scheduled for June 14th, I am writing to inform you that I will not be remitting final payment as outlined in our contract. Per the terms of our agreement, please consider this formal notice of cancellation effective immediately. Please process the refund of the deposit to Collins Events LLC as specified in the original contract. Thank you for your professionalism. Best regards, Ava Collins, Collins Events LLC." I read them over and over until the words stopped making sense. My cursor hovered over send. I thought about Megan when we were kids, crawling into my bed at 2 a.m. with nightmares, whispering that I was the only one who made her feel safe. I thought about my parents, my father teaching me to ride a bike, my mother's blueberry pancakes. I thought about the version of this family that existed in my memory. Then I thought about the text message. "Don't bother showing up. It's not your day." I scheduled all 4 emails to send at 9 a.m., 7 days before the wedding. Then I closed my laptop, walked to my bathroom, and threw up. Not from regret, from the sheer weight of what I'd just set in motion. I gripped the sink, staring at my reflection, pale, hollow-eyed, trembling. "You can still stop this," I whispered. You can delete those emails, call Megan, apologize, fix it like you always do. But the woman staring back at me looked so tired, and I realized I didn't want to fix it anymore. I wanted to be free. I barely slept. At 6 a.m., I gave up, made coffee, sat by the window watching sunrise paint the city gold and pink. At 8:59, my phone was in my hand, email app open, drafts glowing like a nuclear button. I could still stop this. Then I remembered the $5,000 demand, the $11,000 already spent, the years of being invisible unless they needed something. At 8:59, I set the phone down. At 9 a.m., the emails sent. 4 soft whoosh sounds. Digital grenades launched. I sat frozen, waiting for catastrophe. Instead, just silence. Birds chirping, traffic humming, the hiss of my coffee maker. For 2 hours, nothing. Then, at 10:43, my phone rang. Not Megan, the venue coordinator. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello, I'm Ava. I just wanted to confirm we received your cancellation notice for the Collins-Brennan wedding. I'm calling because—" She hesitated. "Because your sister just called me. She's very upset. She's saying this is a mistake, that she's the bride and she wants to proceed." My hand tightened on the phone. "What did you tell her?" "That our contract is with Collins Events LLC, that you're our client of record, and without payment from you, we can't proceed." She became very agitated, started yelling about family sabotage. I had to end the call. "I'm sorry you were put in that position." "It's fine. I just need to confirm, is this cancellation final?" I closed my eyes. "Yes, it's final." "Understood. We'll process the deposit refund within 3 to 5 business days." After we hung up, I sat very still. This was real now, irreversible. At 11:17, Megan called. I put it on speaker, set it on the table like a live grenade. "Hello? What the fuck did you do?" Her voice was shrill, cracking, chaos in the background. My mother's voice, someone crying. "I'm not sure what you mean. The venue just called. They said you canceled. The caterer too. The florist. What the fuck?" "You didn't cancel anything. I simply chose not to make the final payments on contracts registered under my business." "You're ruining my wedding." "No, Megan, you ruined your own wedding when you decided I wasn't worth a seat at it." A choked sound. Then my mother's voice cut in sharp and furious. "Ava Marie Collins, you fix this right now. Your sister's wedding is in 7 days." "I can't fix it, Mom. The contracts are already void." In the background, I heard the caterer calling, someone putting them on speaker. The caterer's voice was professional but strained. "Miss Megan Collins, this is Andre from Bella Cucina. I'm calling regarding the cancellation notice we received this morning from your event coordinator." "She's not my coordinator. She's my sister and she's sabotaging me." "Ma'am, our contract is with Collins Events LLC. Miss Ava Collins is listed as our primary client. Without her authorization and payment, we can't proceed. I understand this is difficult, but contractually, our hands are tied." "This is insane. We had a contract." "Yes, ma'am, with Collins Events, not with you personally." The caterer ended the call. The silence that followed was deafening. Then my father's voice boomed through the phone. "You'll give that money back. Those deposits were for your sister's wedding." "Those deposits were money I paid out of my own account for a wedding I planned for a family that erased me." "We didn't erase you," Megan shrieked. "We just didn't have room." "You had room for 173 people, but not me." Thick silence. Then Megan's voice, lower now, venomous. "You're pathetic. You've always been jealous. You'll die alone with your spreadsheets and your empty apartment, and no one will ever love you the way they love me." The words hit like a slap. Then something inside me hardened into diamond. Maybe, but at least I'll never beg for scraps of love from people who only see me as a credit card. I ended the call. The calls and texts came in waves. My mother: "You're destroying this family. I hope you're proud." My father: "If you don't fix this, you're not welcome in this house ever again." Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. How could you do this to her?" Each message was a knife. But I didn't respond. Instead, I booked a flight to Maui, one way, leaving in 3 days. If I was going to be exiled, I might as well do it somewhere beautiful. On the second day, my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. Alex. I opened the door a crack. He looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles, hands shoved in pockets. "Ava, can we talk?" Against every instinct, I let him in. He stood in my living room, looking around like he'd never seen it before. He probably hadn't. "I didn't know," he said finally, "about the text, about you being uninvited. Megan told me you were too busy to come, that you'd asked to sit out because of work conflicts. And you believed her?" "I had no reason not to." He ran a hand through his hair. "But after the vendors called, I started asking questions. The story kept changing. First you were busy, then you'd offered to skip it, then it was mutual." "It was never mutual." "I know that now." He looked at me with something like pity. "I'm sorry, Ava, I really am. But the wedding, the guests, my grandmother flew in from Dublin. She's 86. This is probably her last chance to see me get married." And there it was, the collateral damage. "I understand this is difficult," I said carefully, "but those contracts were under my business. I absorbed the financial risk. I did the work, and I was erased." "I know, and that's wrong. Megan was wrong. Your parents were wrong." His voice cracked. "But punishing them means punishing people who did nothing wrong. My family, our friends." Guilt crashed through me. He wasn't wrong. For a moment, I almost caved, almost asked for vendor contacts so I could beg them to reinstate everything. Then I remembered. 6 months, $11,000, 200 hours. Don't bother showing up. "I'm sorry about your grandmother," I said quietly. "I really am, but I can't fix this, Alex. Not anymore." His shoulders sagged. "Is there anything I can say to change your mind?" "No." He turned to leave, stopped at the door. "For what it's worth, I think Megan took you for granted, and I think your family did too. What you did was cold, but I don't think it was wrong." Then he left. I closed the door and slid down to sit on the floor, back against the wall, and cried so hard I couldn't breathe. The day of the wedding, I was 38,000 feet over the Pacific. I'd turned my phone off before boarding, couldn't handle another barrage. The flight attendant brought me wine. I stared at it before drinking it in 2 swallows. The woman next to me, older with kind eyes, glanced over. "Rough day?" "Rough life." She smiled. "Those usually make the best stories later." When the plane landed, I turned my phone on. 112 missed calls, 86 texts, 17 voicemails. I didn't listen. Instead, I collected my suitcase and drove to the resort. The room had a balcony overlooking the ocean. Palm trees swayed, sunset painted everything orange and gold. I sat with wine and finally opened the messages. Most were rage, guilt trips, accusations, but one stood out. From Nina. "I don't know what you decided, but I hope you're okay. Call me when you land." I called her. "You did it." "I did it." "How do you feel?" "Like I just burned down the only home I've ever known." "Was it a home, or was it a prison you kept decorating?" I didn't answer. "Give it time," Nina said. "Grief doesn't mean you made the wrong choice, it just means you're human." After we hung up, I sat on that balcony until stars came out. Somewhere in Arizona, Megan's wedding had probably imploded. I'd never know, because I wasn't there. For the first time in my life, I'd chosen myself, and it felt like dying and being born at the same time. 3 days into Maui, I finally checked social media. Mistake. There were photos. Grainy, poorly lit. Megan in her dress in my parents' backyard. Folding chairs, grocery store cake, plastic tablecloths. Caption: when plans fall apart but love holds together. Our intimate backyard ceremony. Heart. 63 comments. All supportive. Beautiful. True love doesn't need fancy venues. No mention of me. No acknowledgement. Just a rewrite where they were scrappy underdogs who made it work despite the odds. I closed the app. That night, lying in my resort bed, I couldn't stop thinking. They'd salvaged something, probably told everyone I'd sabotaged them out of jealousy. Was I jealous? Had I resented Megan's spotlight so much that I'd finally snapped? The doubt ate at me. Until the 7th day, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Against better judgment, I answered. Ava? A woman's voice. Familiar, but I couldn't place it. Yes? It's Catherine, Alex's mother. My stomach dropped. Oh, hi. I'm calling because you deserve to know something Megan's been hiding. I sat up straighter. I am listening. We gave Megan and Alex $30,000 for the wedding 3 months ago. We were told it was going toward venue and catering. My blood went cold. When exactly? March 15th. March, right when I'd started covering all the deposits. Where did that money go? We don't know, but after the wedding fell apart, we asked for an accounting. Megan told us you'd stolen all the deposits, that you'd taken the money and run. The room spun. That's not true. The deposits were refunded to my business because I was the client of record. The money I spent was mine. I believe you, because we checked with the vendors. They all confirmed Collins Events was the client, that you'd been covering costs for months. My hands shook. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you were set up. I think Megan took our money, spent it on God knows what, let you bleed yourself dry covering her wedding, and when it collapsed, she made you the villain. What did she spend it on? Catherine's voice hardened. We've been digging. $8,000 to a boutique in Scottsdale, $4,500 at a spa, $12,000 we can't trace. We think it went to paying off credit cards. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony staring at the ocean. $30,000. Money that should have covered everything. Megan had taken it and blown it while letting me fund her wedding with my savings. And when I said no, she painted me as the monster. I wasn't wrong to walk away. I was late. 2 weeks later, I flew home. My apartment felt different, quieter. There were no messages waiting, no reconciliation attempts, just silence. I threw myself into work, took on 3 new clients, rebuilt my savings. Then, 6 weeks after the wedding, I got an email from Megan. Subject: we need to talk. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. Ava, Alex left me. He found out about the money, about what I told his family. He called off the marriage 3 weeks in. Mom and Dad are barely speaking to me. They're furious about the money and the lies. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Not because I lost everything, because I never saw you. I never valued you, and I don't know how to fix that. M. I read it 5 times. Part of me wanted to feel victorious, but mostly I just felt sad. Sad for the version of us that used to share a room, sad for the family we could have been, sad for the years I spent trying to earn love that was never mine to earn. I didn't respond, not because I was punishing her, because I didn't know what to say. But 2 days later, my Uncle Tom showed up at my office. I recognized him through the glass door, waited for the confrontation. He came in, arms crossed. "You need to explain yourself. You ruined your sister's wedding." I pulled up my bank statements without a word, showed him every transfer, every deposit. $11,000 over 6 months. Did anyone tell you I'd been covering all of this? His expression shifted. "Your father said you offered to help as a wedding gift." I offered to plan it, not fund it, and then Megan uninvited me via text. I showed him the message, the timestamp, the casual cruelty. He sat down heavily. "Jesus, Ava, I didn't know." Nobody knew, because they made sure nobody would ask. And when I finally stopped funding it, they told everyone I sabotaged them. "Your father said you canceled everything out of spite." I canceled contracts registered under my business when final payment wasn't received. That's not spite, that's how contracts work. Tom rubbed his face. "The $30,000 Catherine gave them, you know about that?" "I do now." "Megan spent it, all of it, while you were covering the actual wedding costs." He shook his head. "I'm sorry, Ava. We should have asked more questions." After he left, I sat in my office and realized something. The truth was spreading, slowly, quietly. People were starting to ask questions, and I didn't have to defend myself anymore. The facts spoke for themselves. 3 months later, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Ava." Her voice was small, unfamiliar. "Can we talk?" We met at a coffee shop, neutral ground. She looked older, tired, like someone carrying an unbearable weight. "I owe you an apology," she said before I could speak. "For years of apologies, but I don't know where to start." I stirred my coffee. Didn't help her. "I talked to Catherine. She told me about the money, about what Megan did." Mom's hands shook around her mug. "We enabled her. We enabled all of it, and you paid the price, literally and figuratively. Why now? Why apologize now that everything's fallen apart?" "Because I finally see what we did to you, and I'm ashamed." We sat in silence. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said finally. "Not today. Maybe not ever." She nodded, tears spilling. "I understand. But maybe someday we can try something new, where I'm not the fixer, where you actually see me." "I'd like that," she whispered. It wasn't reconciliation, it wasn't healing, but it was a crack in the door, and for now, that was enough. 6 months after the wedding that wasn't mine, I got an email from a potential client. "We were referred to you by the Henderson family. However, we've heard concerning things about a recent family wedding that was canceled. Can you address this?" I stared at it for an hour. Then I wrote back with complete honesty. The wedding in question was for my sister, who uninvited me from the event I'd been planning and funding for 6 months. The vendor contracts were under my business name. When I withdrew my financial support, the event had to be restructured. I understand if this gives you pause. My business practices are built on contracts, clear communication, and mutual respect. I extend those principles to every client, including family, especially family. If you'd like to discuss this further, I'm happy to provide references. 3 days later, they booked me, at double my usual rate. The email they sent said, "Anyone with the integrity to walk away from family exploitation is exactly who we want planning our wedding. We trust you completely." I sat in my office and cried, not from sadness, from relief. My reputation wasn't ruined. It was enhanced, because I'd finally stood up for myself. A year later, I'm sitting in my office reviewing contracts for a wedding in Santa Fe when my phone buzzes. A text from Megan. "1 year sober today. Therapy twice a week. I'm working on myself. No pressure to respond. Just wanted you to know." I stare at the message, dirt under my fingernails, sun warm on my shoulders. 2 years ago, I would have said yes immediately, grateful to be seen, desperate to be wanted. Now, I think about it, really think. Do I want this, or do I just want the fantasy of the sister we could have been? I type back slowly. Maybe in a few months. I'm not ready yet, but I appreciate you asking. Her response comes quickly. I understand. I'll be here when you are. I set the phone down and go back to planting, because I've learned a critical thing over these 2 years. My worth was never measured by what I gave away. It was mine to define all along. I just had to stop looking for permission to claim it. And now, I'm finally free. Not from my family, not from the past, but from the belief that I had to earn love by bleeding myself dry. I water my garden, make coffee, sit on my porch, and watch the world wake up. And for the first time in my life, I'm not waiting for someone else to validate my existence. I'm just here, whole, flawed, human. Enough.
So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between your peace and someone else's comfort? Drop your story in the comments. You're not alone. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to Revenge Retaliate for more real stories about betrayal, boundaries, and what happens when quiet people finally stop being quiet. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes one story is all it takes to realize you're not the villain for walking away. Hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. And remember, the strongest thing you can say isn't "I forgive you." Sometimes it's just "I'm done." See you in the next story.